Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a story today that's, well, sticky, to say the least.
Dickey is right.
The Great Canadian Maple Syrup Heist.
Oh, yeah, that was a wild one.
Back in 2011, 2012, someone managed to make off with millions of dollars worth of, you guessed it, maple syrup.
Millions.
Millions! Now, I know what you're thinking. Maple syrup. Really? But this isn't your average pantry raid.
No, not at all.
This was a major operation. We're talking a strategic reserve, a mastermind, and a plot that spans provinces.
It really captured people's imaginations, that's for sure.
Okay, so first things first, for those who might not know, just how big of a deal is maple syrup, especially in Quebec?
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, Quebec produces like, what, 75% of the world's maple syrup? Something like
There's
that.
75%? That's incredible.
It's massive. It's a cornerstone of their culture, their economy, their identity.
So this wasn't just stealing any old product.
No, it was striking at the heart of something really important to Quebec.
And with that much maple syrup flowing around, I imagine things need to be kept in check. That's where the Quebec Maple Syrup Producers, the QMSP, comes in, right?
Exactly. They're like the guardians of the maple syrup universe.
Guardians.
Well, they set quotas for producers, they make sure the quality is top-notch, and they keep prices stable. They even have a strategic reserve.
Wait a minute, a strategic reserve for maple syrup?
Yep, sounds crazy, but it makes total sense when you think about it. Global demand for Quebec's maple syrup is through the roof.
So they need a backup plan.
Exactly, like a safety net in case something happens. And you know what happened in 2012?
Someone decided to tap into that reserve illegally.
You got it. July 2012, a QMSP inspector, he's doing his rounds at the reserve in St. Louis de Blanford. Huge warehouse, barrels stacked everywhere, and he starts noticing something's off. Some of the barrels are way too light.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's a big oh no moment.
So we're not talking about a couple of kids sneaking a few bottles here.
No way. This was organized, planned. They'd siphon off the syrup, replace it with water to try to hide it.
That's crazy. How much are we talking about here?
Thousands of barrels.
Yeah.
Millions of dollars worth of syrup just gone.
This is starting to sound like a movie plot. How did they even manage to pull that off?
Well, that's where the Sûreté du Québec, Quebec's provincial police force, came in. But they had a problem.
No security cameras, I bet.
You got it. No cameras at the facility. So it was good old-fashioned detective work, tracking down leads, following the syrup trail, all that.
Did they have any idea who might be behind it?
Eventually, their investigation led them to a guy named Richard Valliere.
Okay, and what do we know about him?
Well, Valliere was known in the industry as a barrel roller.
A barrel roller? What's that?
Someone who knew how to work the system,
Yeah.
bend the rules. He had the connections, the knowledge.
And the guts to pull off something this big.
Exactly. And get this, they think he was moving the stolen syrup to New Brunswick.
Why New Brunswick?
Their maple syrup industry isn't as tightly regulated as Quebec's.
Ah, so they could blend the stolen syrup with legitimate products.
Smart, right. Made it harder to track.
This is getting more and more fascinating. So they were playing the system, exploiting these differences between provinces. But how did they blend it without ruining the good stuff? Wouldn't someone notice?
Well, you see, maple syrup isn't just maple syrup. It's graded based on color, clarity, the whole 9 yards.
So there's a hierarchy of maple syrup.
You could say that. And these guys, they knew it. They targeted specific grades that would blend well and wouldn't raise flags.
So not only criminals, but maple syrup connoisseurs. This is a wild story.
It really is. But, beyond the heist itself, this whole thing really brought to light just how important maple syrup is to Quebec.
Right. It's not just about the money.
Exactly. We're talking
Yeah.
cultural identity, history, tradition.
Yeah.
It goes way deeper than just a sweet topping.
We're definitely going to have to dive into that.
It's really woven into the fabric of Quebec. Maple syrup, I mean.
Yeah, you were saying it's like a cultural icon. What does that even mean?
Well, think about it. Maple syrup production in Quebec. It goes way back. Centuries, even.
Way before pancakes, I'm guessing.
Long before. The indigenous peoples, they were the first to tap those maple trees,
So it's like part of their traditions.
Absolutely. They figured out how to get that sap and turn it into syrup. Techniques passed down over generations.
So it's not just a trendy food, it's like historical.
Exactly. And over time, it became part of Quebec's identity, their celebrations, their traditions.
Like what? Give me an example.
Sugaring off season.
It's sugaring off.
Yeah. Families get together in these sugar shacks. They celebrate the harvest, eat all these maple treats.
Sounds delicious.
Oh, it is. But it's more than that, It's about their connection to the land, their heritage.
So when this heist happened,
It wasn't just about the money. It felt like an attack on their culture, you know?
I can see that. So it wasn't just the maple syrup producers who were upset.
No, it's the whole community, especially those small family-run operations.
The ones who've been doing this for generations.
Yeah, it was a huge blow for them.
Beyond just the financial hit.
A betrayal, almost. They take so much pride in their syrup, in the tradition.
So what happened after? Did this whole heist change the industry?
Oh, definitely. Force them to face some hard truths
No.
about security, supply chains, all of it.
Like they had to tighten things up.
Big time. The QMSP, they had to make some serious changes. Invested in new tech, tougher regulations,
Like what? Give me specifics.
GPS trackers for the barrels, better security at the storage facilities. And they got serious about punishing anyone who tried anything like this again.
So they revamped the whole system.
Pretty much. The world changing, they had to adapt. Global markets, organized crime.
Hmm.
It's a different landscape now.
Did any of this affect, like, regular people? Did the price of maple syrup go up?
Oh, there was definitely an impact. I mean, think about it. All that syrup gone. Security getting tighter.
Supply and demand.
Exactly. Prices did go up a little. Yeah. Not a huge jump, but people noticed.
So even us pancake lovers felt the ripple effect of this heist.
In a way, yeah. It's a reminder that these food systems, they're all connected, and when something goes wrong, it can affect everyone.
What about the guys who did it? Did they get away with it?
Oh, no, not at all. There were arrests, investigations.
Mm-hmm.
Valier, the ringleader, he got 8 years in prison.
8 years for maple syrup.
Hey, this is a huge operation, millions of dollars. The judge wanted to make a statement.
So what happened to Valier's reputation? He was this, what was it, a barrel roller?
Yeah, before the heist, some people thought he was a clever businessman,
Yeah.
pushing the limits.
After.
He became a symbol of greed, someone who betrayed the industry, the whole culture.
Wow. Talk about a fall from grace.
It's amazing how one event can change everything.
So we've seen how the industry reacted, but has anything like this happened since? Have they learned their lesson?
That's the big question, right? And to answer it, we have to look at the bigger picture. Food fraud. It's a global problem. It's not just maple syrup.
So this heist opened up a whole can of worms.
You could say that. We're talking olive oil, honey, seafood, you name it.
Sounds like that's a deep dive for another day. But before we go down that road, let's recap what we've learned about the great Canadian maple syrup heist. All right, so as we wrap up, what are the biggest takeaways from this whole maple syrup caper?
Well, I think it was a wake-up call, for the maple syrup industry, but also for anyone dealing with food production.
Yeah, like a reminder that security mattered.
Big time. Supply chains, regulations, the whole 9 yards. They had to step up their game.
And the QMSP, they made some changes, right, after the heist. Have those actually worked?
Yeah, for the most part, things have been pretty quiet since then. The GPS tracking, the stricter penalties, it's definitely made a difference.
That's good to hear. But you mentioned food fraud is still a problem, so maple syrup is still a target.
Unfortunately, yeah. As long as there's money to be made, someone's going to try to cut corners.
So what's the biggest hurdle now? What are they up against?
Global supply chains. Things are so complex these days, it's hard to keep track of everything.
Right, tracing a product from start to finish, that's gotta be a nightmare.
Especially with something like maple syrup. Easy to mix, easy to fake.
So how do they even fight that?
Technology is a big part of it. Better testing, new ways to track things. The industry's got to stay ahead of the curve.
What about us, though? The people buying the syrup, is there anything we can do?
Absolutely. We have power as consumers. Do your research. Look for certifications. Ask questions.
Support the good guys, basically.
Exactly. The producers who are doing things the right way.
This whole conversation has definitely made me think differently about maple syrup.
It's more than just a topping, right?
Yeah, it's got history, culture, even a little bit of danger.
And that's what makes these deep dives so fascinating. You never know what you're going to uncover.
Well, I think it's safe to say we've all learned a lot today about the heist itself, about the maple syrup industry.
And about the power of a good story.
That's for sure. So next time you're enjoying some pancakes, maybe take a moment to appreciate that bottle of maple syrup. It's more than meets the eye. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.